day when there were blockbusters and Hollywood videos, places to rent those antique VHS tapes. More than once, I would walk past the horror section and have to do a double take because for half a second, I thought I saw a movie with my name. Apparently, there's some horror movie named Strangeland. This is not actually my name, nor has it ever been, but it is how 99% of my junk mail would be addressed, and how on the first day of school, every year, every teacher would mispronounce my last name, Stangland. There's no R, so say it with me just so I can hear it. Stangland. Thank you. So that helps make up for the years of torment. So I never actually watched this movie, but I would notice the vast variety in the horror section. It seems that horror slasher films are a big business, and not just during Halloween time. I just saw a preview for a Christmas horror movie. People like to be afraid. People like to be scared. I think there's some sort of high we get off the adrenaline rush. Now, personally, I've never been into the gore of those horror movies, but I do love my murder mysteries. I think I watch just about every one that's on TV. I love to figure out who done it. I remember years ago, Matt wasn't going to be home till late, so I put on a CSI rerun. I figured rather than a new one on a night when I was going to be home alone, I'd watch one I'd already seen. It would be less suspenseful. I already knew what was going to happen and when it was going to happen. Still, I jumped and spilled my drink everywhere, all over the sofa and the walls, and made a big mess. Now, we don't show these shows to our children, but even in their movies, there's almost always an antagonist. A wicked witch, an evil stepmother, someone or something to instill fear. Darth Vader. They will close their eyes, plug their ears because they've come to realize that sometimes the sound is the scariest part, and just worry. And I reassure them, the good guys are going to win. We know how this movie ends. We've even seen this one before. It's going to be all right. And slowly they will lift their heads up and cheer for justice. Now, the gospel we have before us, Jesus lays out what at first may seem like a suspense thriller. Jesus is telling those who are listening what is going to happen. There will be chaos. The world will seem to turn upside down. The earth will be distressed. Nations confused. Everything we thought we knew to be stable and secure will fall apart. And the unknown will become what is. This was true of the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem. And it has been true every day since, including today. We all have much to be afraid of. We might be afraid of ISIS or ISIL, or the Russians, or nuclear war. We live in California, so we can fear that big earthquake that's going to send us falling into the ocean, and drought and global warming. We are unsettled by change and people who look differently and love differently and worship differently, moving into our country and our communities. We get tense at the thought of walking to our cars late at night downtown, or sometimes walking around the mall or in movie theaters, or sending our kids to school, wondering if there's a mentally unstable person who got a hold of a gun. We are petrified of whatever mysterious object it is that might be slowly killing us in our homes, and we need to stay awake to the 10 o'clock news to find out what it is. We worry about job security, about the funny-looking mole on our back, about whether or not we turn the coffee maker off. Common Core math. And whether or not people like us. We stress about if we are living up to our own expectations or the expectations of others, and if we are enough. We fear our own sin, what we have done, and what we have left undone. Well, Jesus speaks about the fear that drives some. Fear that causes some to faint. And some of us to hide under our beds, or put the covers up over our heads, to plug our ears and squeeze our eyes tight, because in our panic, our fear is blinding. I think Yoda said it so well. Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. Now, just for fun, I want you to all say that last part with me in your best Yoda voice. See if we can do it. It'll be on video. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. Okay, we all have a lot of work to do before December 18th. Fear is natural. It's a defense mechanism. But I think sometimes we might enjoy that adrenaline rush from it a bit too much. It can be addictive. And sometimes we might find too much power in fear aggression, like a dog attacking before being attacked, snarling at the first scent of change. Now, Jesus never seems to condemn fear in and of itself, but it's not what he wants for us. And I think Jesus does make it clear that if we are living based in fear, we are not living based in faith. Jesus is telling those with him, those of us who would consider ourselves to be Jesus' disciples, those of us who would follow, to keep our heads up. Now is the time to look for how God is present in the midst of the chaos. And we can't do that if we're hiding under a blanket, or if we're just looking inward towards ourselves. We must look out into the world. Look for Christ in one another. Listen for his voice in our prayers, in the quiet and in the noise. See, Luke's gospel before us today is not a horror movie or a suspense thriller or even a mystery to solve when Jesus is coming back. That is not the plot. But what Luke does share in this message of hope is how we should wait. To stand tall, to keep our heads up, to be alert, and to be prepared. And we prepare by loving one another, by working for peace, by fighting for justice, by welcoming the stranger, and by feeding the hungry, because that is how we live out our faith. Jesus reassures us we have nothing to be afraid of, because we know how this story ends, with Christ victorious. Christ who is with us. Christ who has never left us. The good news is that the God who hung the sun and the moon and the stars is for us. God also created us and loves us enough to send us God's Son to show us what love looks like. When we look at the sky, when we count the stars, we can be reminded that God is so much bigger than us and bigger than our chaos. We keep our heads up because in this script of hope, God is light that outshines all of our darkness. Amen.